That daily grind, hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind, cause bitches be bitching. Snitches keep snitching, the world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride, instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Man, when you feel hungry, don't you have to eat?
Yo, yo, pump up the volume and digest this beat.
Rapscallions in the house with this lyrical truth.
When we're done with you, you're gonna ice your feet.
If the world ends tomorrow and you had one chance,
Hey yo, would you start the move like it's your last dance?
yo, do something small in the past and present changes.
Do something now, the future rearranges.
Cause bitches keep bitching,
Yo, snitches keep snitching,
the world keeps turning,
and you start living your life instead of hitching a ride. Rapscallions. J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rowing a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on that daily grind. Hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind. Cause bitches be bitching. Snitches keep snitching, the world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Man, when you feel hungry, don't you have to eat?
Yo, yo, pump up the volume and digest this beat.
Rapscallions in the house with this lyrical truth.
When we're done with you, you're gonna ice your feet.
If the world ends tomorrow and you had one chance,
Hey yo, would you start the move like it's your last dance?
yo, do something small in the past and present changes.
Do something now, the future rearranges.
Cause bitches keep bitching,
Yo, snitches keep snitching,
the world keeps turning,
and you start living your life instead of hitching a ride. Rapscallions. J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rowing a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on that daily grind. Hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind. Cause bitches be bitching. Snitches keep snitching, the world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Man, when you feel hungry, don't you have to eat?
Yo, yo, pump up the volume and digest this beat.
Rapscallions in the house with this lyrical truth.
When we're done with you, you're gonna ice your feet.
If the world ends tomorrow and you had one chance,
Hey yo, would you start the move like it's your last dance?
yo, do something small in the past and present changes.
Do something now, the future rearranges.
Cause bitches keep bitching,
Yo, snitches keep snitching,
the world keeps turning,
and you start living your life instead of hitching a ride. Rapscallions. J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rowing a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on.
Welcome everybody to episode 15 of Rapping with Rapscallions. Looks like we've got some echo here. Take care of that. We had some technical difficulties. There's lots of updates over at Facebook. They're merging all their Instagram and their Facebook stuff. So we're making the appropriate changes over here, and we're about to have fun. Joe, how was your week? Tell me about your week. Let's have the weekly the weekly recap.
The weekly recap. Yeah, so this week, man, terrible week for the Miami Heat. I'm still rocking the hat though. Still giving mad support. They're playing to the best of their abilities against the Los Angeles Lakers, and they're playing really, really good. The Lakers are. So I'm hoping for a turnaround today. I believe that Jimmy and the rest of the team can bring it back and hopefully snatch a victory today. So, I mean, that's been pretty much my week, other than work. But who cares about work when you're in the NBA Finals? Yeah.
So
what about you, man?
I've been had a nice week. I did notice I'm out in Cocle, so there's a lot more people taking advantage of the open borders and whatnot. There's a lot of people out here in Cocle. I couldn't believe it, the change from one week to the other. I guess all the city people who don't have to be here, don't have to be in the city, have decided to come and take up the rest of Panama, which I guess in the long run is a good thing because the rest of the country could use that sort of lifestyle. But, it kind of makes me worried in the short term with all the stuff with the pandemic going on. But in other news, I did a lot of chainsawing, Joe. I've added one more skill to my repertoire. We've had some some trees, some unwanted trees grow between the Marañón trees, and I've learned that
Right.
they're leaching vitamins and nutrients from the trees that we want. And I've been trying to learn how to prune. I've been trying to learn how to cut down trees. So, and I also had to repair the chainsaw. So look at that. I fixed the chainsaw and I cut down 2 trees. What more do you want? And the sheep's
Man.
your goddaughter Agnes ate all the leaves off of one of the trees. She's huge.
Look at that, man. Look at that. Look at that. Fabulous.
Yeah,
Go
she's
Agnes, man.
she's a little piggy. She's looking good, and she's growing up nicely. She's got a nice attitude on her. Without further ado, though, raising all these sheeps and chickens and having to learn about it brings me on to our subject of the day: learning, teaching,
that?
and getting schooled. How do you learn yourself good, man?
Right.
You gotta. Learning is a constant thing that you'll do throughout your lives. But I have to say, reflecting to my school days, they're very bright stars, and the way that I learn things now has much to do with my favorite teachers. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been excited about the things that I'm excited about now. And I had one bad math teacher, and I never went to mathematics, even though I was very good at it. But I had excellent.
The same thing happened to you?
I later had a good math teacher who revived my interest in math, but I moved more into marine biology because of Mr. Seitz and Dr. Peterson and Mrs. Seitz. They were my science teachers. And, I can't say enough. There's tons of educators in my family, so I want to introduce our guest, who's very special to me. Not only is she beautiful and talented, she's also my sister, which gives you some explanation as to why she's so good looking and so intelligent. Without further ado, I want to introduce Kara McGuirt, my sister. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody. Oh, I'm so happy to be on.
Well, now that you've introduced yourself, I'm going to change your title from Kara McGuirt to, in good school fashion, we're going to change it to Mrs. McGuirt. Hello, Mrs. McGuirt.
Hello, Mrs.
Hello.
McGuirt.
Joe brought.
Also, I've been called White Lady. I've also been called Miss
Miss
Agirt, Miss Aquirt. So I have tons
Oh,
of
nice.
names. My favorite, though, is White Lady. Hey, White Lady.
White
Well, that goes
lady.
good with the Rapscallions because we have a list of AKAs. You keep a list of all those, and those can be your different.
Right.
Those can be your different monikers. And Joe, the sweetheart that Joe is, he brought you an apple. There it is. Yeah.
I did.
2
There-
apples.
Oh,
3
thank
apples.
you so
Wait, there it is.
There you go. Another one.
There it is.
Another
Wait,
apple.
where's my arm? There's my arm. There it is.
Love it.
There you go.
I can't
It's always good form to bring your teacher an apple. I guess that tradition died many years ago. I think that's part of.
Yeah, do kids still do that? I was thinking about
Listen.
that the other day for some reason, but yeah.
Listen, quit getting your teachers apples. They prefer gift cards to Applebee's or any
Oh.
restaurant, or even maybe coffee.
Yeah,
place,
Applebee's is
coffee
good because
place.
that keeps with the whole Apple.
The Apple theme.
Or maybe get
that's
her an
right.
Apple iPod or an Apple iPhone, or a subscription to.
Even better.
All right, Miss McGirt, you being my sister, I'm going to try really hard not to call you Tutu, which is what we've been calling each other since birth, I guess. And everyone always asks me how much older I am than you, and only a few years, to tell you the truth. It's I've aged very poorly. But anyway, tell us about yourself. Where did you study? What are you as a teacher, and what are some of your educations that are whatever certificates? Explain it to us what it's like to go after the teaching career.
Well, I know that I always wanted to be a teacher because growing up, I would just play teacher constantly. And actually, when I went to college, I wanted to go into psychology, but my math wasn't that good. So I was like, yeah, I better go back to what I really enjoy, and that's teaching. So I got my degree from University of South Florida right here in the Tampa Bay area. And I was not the best student, I'll be honest, but you don't have to be. It's just, this is with everybody. You just have to work through it. A's or C's, whichever one you get, just work through it and you'll be happy.
I read something that said that it was a math teacher. She said she always knew which one of her students would be the most successful because it was the one who kept trying to solve the problem even though they didn't know the answer. And that showed that they had tenacity.
Yep.
And then you had your smart, brainy students who would look at the problem and say, I can't solve this, and then just give up. They were more likely to be less successful.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. So you said you went to school in the Tampa Bay area. What did you study specifically in teaching?
I got my degree in, back then they called it mentally handicapped. So my degree was to be an educator of the mentally handicapped, K through 12.
Oh, very good. Did you specialize in anything? Did you have to learn anything special for that career field?
Of course. I mean, we had to learn all the instructional strategies that, we use with our special ed kiddos. And I mean, that's on top of the regular education teaching. We specialized in all those different forms that you use with our kiddos to help them be successful in the classroom.
Oh, very cool. We have a shout out to Karina. She's tuned in and she says, Kara McGuirt is the best.
Thank you, Karina. I love you.
Stephanie's tuned in too. She says, are y'all going live? I've been waiting. And then she said she's tuned in. She liked the page. Let's see. Are there any other shout outs? Do you see anyone else, Joe, that we need to say hello to?
Would that be my cousin, Stephanie?
Our cousin Stephanie's tuned in. She's also a teacher.
Hello, another wonderful educator out there. We have to give our educators mad
Exactly.
props.
It was when I mentioned earlier that we had a lot of educators in the family. There was Aunt Candy, Aunt Taffy, Kara, Stephanie, Colleen. Am I missing anyone? Tracy, also Tracy. So all our cousins and aunts were Vicky Cannon Webb says, hola, Kara.
Vicky.
Oh my God. Hello, Vicky.
So we've got a nice lively crowd, and you guys don't forget to send in your questions. The Rapscallions loves audience participation.
For sure.
So Joe, where did you, Kara talked about her schooling. Where did you go to school at and what did you study?
I did. Well, first I got to give shout outs to some teachers because I had some very influential teachers in my life as well, man. In elementary school in Miami, I had Miss Johnson and Miss Justice and Mr. Benton. Like, those were like my 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teachers. Totally influenced my life. Really appreciate them. Then once I got into middle school, I had scary math teachers, so I didn't like math. But, what can you do? What can you do? But then, when I got my degree in international affairs from Florida State University, and here in Panama City, in the Panama City campus. Shout out to FSU Panama. Good place to go. Good place to study.
I attended there.
Oh yeah, there you go. Excellent. So we're alumni. Love it.
Another educator has chimed in. Alex Reyes, lead singer of Shorty and Slim, also a teacher, says that I'm a cepillon. I'm kissing ass by giving an apple out. Hey, come on. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
There's an apple.
Go ahead, Joe.
There's an apple. And then I got my master's from the University of Edinburgh, and that was in environment and development, because I was trying to be all environmental and stuff. So yeah, wonderful place to go and study. And yeah, man, wonderful teachers as well. It's really incredible how you start to appreciate your teachers more. We were speaking about this earlier. The older you get, I think the more you appreciate them. Because we were speaking with Kara earlier, we just kind of think they live in school and that's what they do forever is just teach. But no, man, they're human beings as well, and they have needs and hobbies and things they do outside of the school. And I think once I was, a bit older in college, university, I was kind of like, teachers are cool people too, man.
Yes, we are. I will agree with you right there.
100%. What about you, HB? Walk us through your educational journey.
I went to prison, and then I went to, no, I'm just kidding.
Which prison? Please elaborate.
Coiba.
Wow.
So I was all over the board. I started off studying marine biology at PCC, which was an excellent place to study because we would walk from the campus down to the bridge and collect soil samples and water samples from the ocean, from the actual Canal of Panama. and study those. And we went to Galapagos. We touched on that last week on the Coiba episode. And, you know, the teacher that I had for marine biology at PCC was amazing, Jack Peterson, Dr. Jack Peterson. He was such an animated person that he infected you with you know, he's like, we'd be talking about different phylum and whatnot. We got to fungi. He's like, and everyone's like, oh, fungi. He's like, come on, guys, shrooms, you know. And then he got us laughing, and he would always try to engage us. So I went to the Galapagos with him, and it was a life event. Being able to do that. I also took vertebrate morphology. We dissected everything. Dave Seitz, I had a good time in his physiology class. My interest in the human body probably sprang forth from that. And then when I got, after I studied marine biology, I felt like that field was a little too slow for me. I thought I'd probably end up studying snails for 10 years until I got my grant. So I switched over to computer engineering and computer sciences at USF in Tampa. Unfortunately, I never finished, but you know, that's one of those things. That's how I learned how to do all this fancy computer stuff and stream all over Instagram and whatnot. Is with my interest in the computer sciences. We got another teacher shout out, Xenia Morris. Teachers rock. Kara, it is so great to see you. Love all this audience participation. We've got a lot of friends and family tuning in, and a lot of educators here. So let's jump into the nitty gritty. I know we've got a lot of things to talk about.
Nitty gritty.
So, you know, you already touched on the question, what made you want to become a teacher? You know, did you have anything else you want to add to that?
I just loved kids. I just had such a good time. I would play teacher, and as I got older and went to college, like I'd work for the YMCA, working with kids. And I just had I don't want to toot my own horn, but I felt like I could get them engaged and connect with them, you know? So I apologize for the background noise. That's my daughter. I have children too. But, and that's what makes my day, is that I get to work with these children, and I'm happy to do it. It's not, I mean, everything else is a job. The paperwork, you can ask Stephanie, because we bitch about it all the time. The paperwork, the guidelines, this, that. But the teaching part we love.
So the positive side of the teaching is the engagement. That's the fulfilling side, is working with the kids. But one of the caveats of teaching is the bureaucracy and the paperwork.
Exactly.
That's very interesting. Just because you always think that kind of teachers just do, when they're teaching, they're doing their job. But in reality, there's so much more behind the scenes that you really don't appreciate in the build-up to the teaching, you know?
That's right.
I had an experience teaching, I guess they were high school kids. There was an international theater competition, and they asked a few of us from the guild to be judges. Karina was one of them, a few other people. And I was one of the judges, and one of the projects that we had was we had a group, one student from each group, and then we had a stimulus package where we handed them an envelope of cardboard, pencils, cardboard, paper, scissors, and then a picture. And each group, headed by each judge, had a picture that they had to look at it and come up with a play, and then I was there to course correct and guide them. And I'll tell you that's one of the experiences I've had that's kind of close to teaching, and I was just amazed and jealous how quickly these kids learned their lines. They're sponges. They took to the changes very quickly. They were all, I try to direct them down the right avenue and just made course corrections. I was like, I think you should stay away from this because of these reasons, but if you want to go there, let's do it. And they're like, we want to do a musical with dancing. And at that point, I'd never been in a musical with dancing. I'm like, sure, let's do it. And it was amazing. One of the highlights of my acting career was actually teaching others how to act. So I can definitely empathize with you about the attraction and the fulfillment that you get from teaching.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the beautiful things is I work with children with autism, and currently I'm teaching 3 grade levels because of the pandemic. And I've always taught special ed since I started teaching. And then I went into regular education for probably about 5 years. And there's nothing like, whether they're regular ed, whether they're special ed, there is nothing like the feeling of seeing that spark in their eye when they get something. I mean, that is just an amazing feeling. It really is.
I can imagine. I mean, you're the you're the one making the change in their lives. They're like the light bulb turns on and you're feeling that spark. That's got to be amazing. All right, so we've come up with a list of questions. You kind of touched on our next one. We listed out examples of some of your best experiences as a teacher. Seeing that spark, as you just said, is one of them. Do you have any? Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
I think one of the most important things, I think sometimes us teachers forget about the parent part of it, And it wasn't until I had children of my own that I could actually understand what these parents are going through. And just getting to know the parents and having the parents also appreciate you as a teacher has been one of the most incredible parts of teaching. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had parents who disliked me and wanted to just throw me over a bridge somewhere. But for the most part, it's been a wonderful experience with these parents. And I will say this, that during the pandemic, one of my best things look, I'm going to start crying just thinking about it, is I work about an hour away from my school and the children live about an hour away. They all made posters and came to my house with their posters in a caravan. We love you, Mrs. McGuirt. That was one of the most heartfelt, touching things I've ever been through as a teacher. It was absolutely magnificent that they drove all that way. Their parents drove them all this way.
That's incredible.
Very sweet. Wow, that's amazing.
So you had your own teacher parade.
Yes, I did. And everyone came outside. They're like, what's going on? And I was shocked. I had no idea. Thank God I was dressed, So, yeah.
Wow, that is really amazing. You must have been in tears. I can't even imagine.
I was in tears. Wow. Absolutely.
That is incredible. And it also, I mean, it's really special. I don't know quite how large your classes are, but it must be really special just building, and all kids are different, right? So being able to build a relationship with each one of these kids, like, it's really remarkable, I think, how you can do that, like adapt your style and everything.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I love about special ed, and I actually went through it in regular education as well, is when you move up with your kids. In regular ed, we just kind of move 4th to 5th, back down to 4th, move up with your kids in 5th. But I've had some of these kiddos right now for K1 and 2 for 3 years or so. So you definitely build a relationship, and during the pandemic, I have to tell you, as crazy as it was, the parents were on the call with you while teaching their students. So not only were you interacting with the students and building a relationship with the students, but you really got to know the parents, and the parents really got to know you.
That do you think that kind of shed some light into the process for them, and like maybe if they hadn't been hadn't been a part of it?
Oh, for sure.
I remember.
For sure. They saw all the strategies we were using, even though it was online and it was crazy and it was very difficult to keep their attention. They saw the strategies that we used, which is one of the things that these kids need breaks. You can't make them sit all day long. This goes for regular ed. This goes for special ed. Anybody, myself as an adult. You have to take those breaks and give these kids time to, okay, I've had enough. Let me just, get my energy back, so that they can stay focused. If not, you're going to lose them.
They get oversaturated, I imagine, because I get oversaturated now. Okay. But I'm old enough now where I'm like, I'm oversaturated. Bye-bye.
Exactly.
Well, listen, we had just on a personal note, we had an away day. So everybody's doing in at work now, everybody's doing these virtual things, right? That's how you're kind of relating with people. So we had this away day, which was supposed to be like a fun away day for the office. And we ended up spending, I mean, it was very useful. I enjoyed it, but we were sat in front of a computer for 4 hours
Oh God,
just
no.
looking at a screen. And while I can appreciate what they were trying to do, at the end of it, I was just like, I don't want to look at a screen anymore, you know? So if
Sure.
I was feeling that way and I was very frustrated, I can only imagine what it must be like for a child, you know, somebody much younger than
And
I am.
And it was very difficult as a parent as well. I mean, teaching autistic children online all day long because they need that support. It's not like you can just go through the readings. Plus, you have several grade levels. And then my own kids, I feel like I kind of neglected my own kids. You know, they weren't doing well. And by the end of the day, I was like, I've had it. Go do your math. I'm
Right.
done. I know that sounds terrible, but that's the reality of it. I was burnt out.
So we asked some of our Joe asked some of his coworkers some questions, and I think I want to jump ahead because you kind of touched on it says some children have special needs and do not tolerate video sessions, seeing a face or faces on the screen. Are there ways to work around sensory and attention issues and ensure kids with special needs are not left out? First, I want to say thanks for asking your coworkers, Joe, because that's an amazing question. I never would have come up with something like that.
It's
Believe
very
me.
difficult, and it's difficult for the parents, you know, and you really have to have some empathy. But like I said, you've got to have the breaks, especially children with, you know, special needs. You got to have those breaks. These kids need something to work for. So what we would do at our school is we had some kind of a motivator, like a virtual field trip or, you know, something to that extent, or a virtual party, and they just couldn't wait to go on these virtual trips or virtual parties and just stick with the breaks and work at their pace, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, so that sounds like it works. I mean, that would work well with me too. You know, sitting 5 hours, 5 hours in front of, you know, Joe and I have done this for 3 hours straight, and when we were done, we were both kind of loopy after that. There were other substances
Yeah.
involved, but there, you know, there's quite a bit of oversaturation with the webcams and the flashing lights and all the buttons that you got to press. But that sounds like good advice across the board.
Right. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for, especially with our kids that have sensory issues. I know a lot of the parents don't have the things that we use in the classroom as far as dealing with their sensory issues. For example, like squishies for them to manipulate while we're teaching them, or cutting the lights down low, or putting something over the light, or even calming music.
So, Joe, do you have any more of those excellent questions that you sourced from your coworkers?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. So I guess the one I'm gonna go to is let me. There's so many of them actually. Let me see which one we can go to next. Okay, so what do you think the long-term educational impact is? Talking about COVID now, what do you think the long-term educational impact of this COVID era will be on children and teens? What can parents do to help mitigate against any detrimental effects? And again, I guess this has to do a lot with just all the time we're spending in front of a screen and the lack of social contact. Because again, one of the key things of school is you get to socially interact with other
Conflict
people.
resolution.
And I've seen how a lot of my friends who have really, really young kids, their kids they just don't really interact with other people anymore.
It's very detrimental. I have to tell you, it's been very hard to watch. Even with my own kids, it's been hard to watch. They need that social interaction. But on the other hand, we don't want them to get sick. We don't want our staff to get sick. We don't want the parents to get sick. So it's been very difficult. But it really, especially with my children who have special, not my personal children. See, I call them my children. I
Yeah.
can't help it. But my students, they need that social interaction. They practice working on that every day at school because they don't have that social,
Skill or
that's the biggest dilemma, is the social aspect of things. So it's been very detrimental, and it's been detrimental to my personal kids as well. As far as the screen time goes, they just don't like. They like to spend time on the iPads and all that with their Minecraft and all that baloney. They just don't like to do schoolwork. Period.
Well, just on that, actually, I have based on when you were talking earlier about the virtual field trips as a reward. What type of virtual field trips do you have? Like how that
For
sounds really
example,
interesting.
it's incredible because most of the different, like say the zoo or Moat Marine here in St. Petersburg, they actually have like a web-based thing that you can show on your Zooms with
like
your
a virtual
students.
tour?
So they are, yeah, it's like a virtual
Very
tour.
cool.
And they loved it.
Great. Well, I guess technology for the win one more time.
That's right.
That sounds really amazing. And then they would get to see, I guess, all the little like the marine animals and everything, and
Correct.
just that's so exciting. Wow.
Correct. Even just honestly, even just inviting some of the staff, like their art teacher or the principal, to come in and have lunch one day, like a virtual lunch. They loved it. They absolutely loved
So it's
it.
Wow.
maybe a little change of scenery to keep things exciting.
Exactly.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, hit us with another question.
All right. So next question is, so for all the parents that we have listening, do you have any tips for working parents? How to make sure that your child is doing what they're supposed to be doing? I think that's key. I know I've had a lot of coworkers who, between managing their jobs and trying to make sure that everything they're doing in the office stays on track, then they also have to be making sure that the
And their
kids
home.
are doing what they're supposed
Shopping,
to do.
groceries,
And their home. Yeah.
COVID, quarantines.
I was very fortunate because as difficult as it was, I was able to teach from home. I mean, we have parents that couldn't stay home with their kids. It's impossible. Excuse me one second. Addison!
That's the teacher voice.
Your
You guys
noise
hear that? That's the
level.
teacher voice.
Thank you.
Well done,
you hear that?
Mrs.
Quiet
McGuirt. Hold on, you need another apple. Let's get some apples on there. Bloop. 2 apples for that teacher voice.
Yeah. You can also give them
The laser
look.
beams.
Yeah. But anyway, like I was saying, those parents who didn't have an opportunity to stay home and maybe lost their jobs because of it, I mean, there's no way around it. You have to work in order to provide for your families. So I really don't know what to say about that. But I will say working with your kids, I'm not gonna lie. I really struggled with it, and I just had to make myself sit down with them after I was done with work and work with them on the things that they were having trouble with. Because most of the time the teachers were on with them, but they just didn't have that concentration as being with an actual teacher in a classroom.
I think even if we weren't in pandemic times, I think that type of parental involvement in the scholastic career of their children is one of the highest deciding factors on whether or not they're going to be successful scholastically. You're getting we talked about our inspirational teachers. I mean, it's luck to be able to get a teacher that really inspires you. Is really up to fortune. But one thing that you can do is be involved in your child's scholastic life.
Absolutely. It's so important. I'm just going to tell a story, if I may.
Yeah.
I was teaching trainably mentally handicapped kids. We're talking students with an IQ between, 30 and 70, with 100 being the average, okay? And there was this one child, and no matter what, her mother worked 3 jobs. She was an only parent, but you could darn tell that she worked with her kid every single day. And even though she was, trainably mentally handicapped, as they used to call them back then in the old days, you could tell because she was actually making so many tremendous gains. So it goes with the parents, it goes with the teachers. We have to work hand in hand.
Amazing. Well, my takeaway from that story is that, Joe, you and I are trainable.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I do enjoy that story. I remember, us growing up together. Our parents were very involved in our scholastic careers, and I think when I want to learn something new, I have very positive memories about picking up a book on my own, and now I can go look up YouTube. I can go to the YouTubes and figure out how to do it, and I think part of that stems from our parents helping us and pushing us towards teaching ourselves and acquiring new skills.
Yes, for sure. I think even growing up, I remember, well, when I lived in the U.S., my parents were always involved. They were in the PTA, the Parent Teacher Association. They were super involved in that. They went to all the parent teacher meetings. Even when I was in middle school, and the math teacher that I was scared of because I didn't understand math, my mom would still go and talk to her to see how I could improve. And then once we moved back to Panama, my mom worked at the school that I attended. So she was always super heavily involved in all of this.
Lucky you.
Hey, that sounds great, Joe.
So lucky, especially when they would take my Walkman and not give it back to me, and they say your son had a Walkman in class.
Trouble. Well, I think that's a good segue to our next question: is how can parents maximize their child's school experience?
Just being involved. Talk to the teacher. Call them up. Text them. I mean, we're in the age of technology. I have a connection. My parents can contact me through a school-based program called Class Dojo. So if they have an issue, they can just message me. I mean, I'm available constantly. All I do is just answer them real quick. Stay involved and get in there and understand how your kids are doing in the classroom.
Wonderful. And what can parents do to support their child's teacher?
Just help at home, follow through at home. And also, I would say, before you have a bad thing to say about your teacher, just go talk to them. Have a conference, for Pete's sake, Jesus. But usually it's a miscommunication or something I'm sure the teacher did not mean to do, or the student did not mean to do, or vice versa,
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying in Panama. It's like la gente se entiende hablando. People will understand each other only by talking. And we got some more shout outs.
Absolutely.
We got some more fans of Miss McGuirt. Vicky Cannon Webb is sitting for 7 hours and then having homework on top of it. Emoji. Christy Brayton, wear your hair down more often, beautiful. I love you. And Megan Cat Williams. Hi, HB and Mrs. McGuirt. Hi, Megan. We love the audience interaction here. So where did we leave off? We were talking about how to support your child's your child's teacher. I think that was some great advice. And I just clicked some buttons that I shouldn't have. Joe, hit us with another question while I fix and make sure.
Yeah, well, this one, for sure. No, this is one that just kind of came to my mind. Because I'm thinking, sometimes it's easier for you to establish a relationship with a certain type of child at some point. But then there's other kids that are much more reserved and don't really want to speak to their teachers. Like I remember with the teachers I mentioned earlier, I would always speak to them a lot. Like I could really engage with them. And even though I was in 4th grade, it was like they spoke to me like I was a human being. So it was great. Like we had conversations. And my parents therefore knew that I had a great relationship with these teachers. But then what do you do with kids that are just kind of like, I don't want to talk to the teacher? And then therefore it makes it harder to establish a positive relationship with the parent.
That's one of the things that we've really been working on in Pasco County is that social emotional aspect, having empathy for the kids, trying to figure out what is it that will motivate them? What is it that you can gain a connection with? And I know that all teachers have those students who are just, oh, you just want to, but you can never, ever let them know that, ever. You have to praise them. You have to find a way to connect with them. And being negative is not the way to do it. It really isn't. Positive praise always works in my classroom. You work for what you do. You get the praise you deserve. I've never had to put a kid in timeout. I've never had to yell at a kid, ever. Although I wanted to. I'm not going to lie. I really did want to. But it's just forming that relationship. And some relationships are harder than others to form, but eventually you get in there and you get them.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's really cool to hear that because I remember having teachers that would just like blow up with that one student that was always pushing the button and they would like slam books on the just to try and make themselves be scary, I guess. And it was always kind of like, how are you gonna reach this person if you're like, if I don't know, I just didn't know what was going on.
Oh, listen, I've had my room completely destroyed. Desks, I had to get the other kids out of the room. This kid was, but you know what? He had a special place in my heart. I can't help it. He was just, ooh, throwing things. He pulled the fire alarm, running around the room, stabbing people with
Oh my
pencils,
goodness.
hitting, kicking.
Wow.
And he would laugh about it, you know?
Yeah.
But for some reason, this kid, even the principal loved him. He was hard. He was a hard kid to deal with, but there's just something about those, you know, strong cases that you can't
Yeah.
reach them. And that's like your only goal is to get to that kid.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, he left my classroom.
Aw.
Not unfortunate, but
Yeah.
so I don't
No,
know
but
where he is now.
that requires a lot of persistence. Like you can't, because you can't give up. You can't just say like, whatever, I'm never gonna reach this kid. They're a lost cause.
Nope, you can
You
never,
know?
ever, ever do that. Even the kids that are, you know, probably shouldn't be or inappropriately placed into my classroom, you still have to teach them. You can't just say I'm not going to teach you because you don't belong in my classroom. You
Yeah.
gotta teach them.
You don't have a
Otherwise-
choice, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then I guess just on that, I mean, what like so just another one of the questions that we have here. As a teacher, what are your frustrations like with the parents or with the system? Is there anything that you just kind of think like whenever you feel kind of like low energy, like what gets to you?
I will say the paperwork. Number
Yeah.
one is the paperwork. Everything is data driven. So not only are you trying to come up with lessons that are engaging, you know, to help your students, you have to collect data. So I don't know when we're going to have time to do that, but that's, you know, we got to be writing everything down. The paperwork is horrendous and they don't give us time for that because we're constantly doing meetings and like trainings to help us. My thing is, let us teach. We went to school to do this. We're not there for the money. We're there because we love it. Let us do our job. Quit micromanaging.
I think
I mean, that's the worst part of it.
sometimes I imagine to myself, again, touching on that magical teacher that we all have had in our past, how many excellent teachers have passed over that career because of one, pay, two, because of the bureaucracy, paperwork, and maybe they would really have been good at that job, but passed it over just because of the hurdles that they knew that they would face. So
Yeah.
I can definitely empathize with what you're saying there, Kara.
Well, that's definitely a factor because we have had many interns that come through our school, beginning teachers that have come through our school. Now I've been teaching 20 plus years, so I've seen a lot of them, and by the third year they're done. They're done. They'd rather go back to school and do something else.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I think if we look towards other countries like Singapore and Thailand or something like that, they revere teachers. Like teachers are held on a pedestal, and rightfully so. They should be. They literally have the hands of our future. It's in their. I'm losing words here. I can get a little emotional here. Teachers have the future in their hands, and they're shaping their minds.
Yeah.
We need to. This is a hot take from HP. We need to show our teachers more respect. We need to better our education system so that it's more effective instead of getting a little more points.
Preach.
I want.
And I think, you know what, HP,
Of course.
can I interrupt you for just a second? I definitely agree with that point that you're making because really, at least our school district is trying to get teachers to stay, okay? So they basically just passed a bill where starting teachers will start at $47,000+. But you're forgetting your old fart teachers like me. I've been teaching for over 20 years. And I'm just barely above that. We haven't had a pay raise and I can't tell you how long. It's absolutely horrible. And it just, thank God we're not in it for the money.
I think in addition to that, I think you have to buy your own teaching supplies as well, don't you?
Sure.
No
Absolutely.
way.
And
really?
guess what? It's not a tax write-off. I mean, isn't that?
Well, we do get a little tiny tax.
That's ridiculous.
write-off.
Like if you get these
Like,
bankers that are paid
$50.
millions of dollars and they write everything off, and the teachers can't write off their school supplies. I think that's horrendous.
Seriously.
It's like we're punishing the people who have our future
terrible.
in their hands.
Yeah.
I will say this though, depending on what school you're at, I have the absolute best school, in my opinion. My staff, or not my staff, my coworkers, my peers are absolutely wonderful. Everyone supports each other. The principal and the assistant principal are amazing. And really, honestly, they will give me, if I ask for something, they will give me what
That's
I need.
amazing.
You know,
Well, within reason.
that's very good.
Right. We need 6 more assistants in here. How big are your classrooms?
No, that's not going to happen. My classroom is very tiny. I have about, starting Monday, I'll have 10. And let me tell you, there's no social distancing happening
not
in
in
my
special needs
classroom.
classes, right?
There's 4 adults. It's a small classroom. We're supposed to have the desks 6 feet apart. Our kids have sensory issues. They don't want to wear their masks. We got to teach. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Do you have any Zoom or teleconference? What is that called in your area? The internet students.
Oh, those are called My Student Online. They had 3 options. They could do My Student Online, where they are all day school hours on the computer. Okay. Then they have Pasco Virtual, which is just you do it on your own. You know, there's no teacher coming on Zoom. And then of course there's brick and mortar, which is what I do, where the students actually come to school.
Do you think your classes would have been bigger, without the pandemic? I mean, what's the change in ratio?
They're already coming back to, Henry, they're already coming back. These parents have had enough. I don't blame them. It is very, very difficult. And now they're starting all to come back to brick and mortar, which is why our classroom numbers are getting big and not enough teachers because they're doing My School Online.
Do you think some parents out there might have a new respect for teachers now?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I had one parent tell me, I didn't know, I couldn't do it. How are you getting them to do this? I can't get them to do it. I mean, they've really felt it.
Excellent.
Yeah. You know, that's what I hear from my colleagues as well. I keep hearing, like, I have a newfound respect for my kids' teachers. I don't understand how they do this. It's so incredible, so remarkable. And I think, and they were really happy when the schools opened, because I have colleagues in Florida. They were really happy that the schools opened and the kids went back. But then they were also like, what happens if there's a COVID outbreak at the school? What are we going to do? And then, well, I just didn't really know. Maybe you can tell us, what are some of the, I guess, security measures in place in schools and how,
It's kind of like your, what is that, basketball that you're watching right now? Yeah.
Basketball, Miami Heat.
Okay. So it's kind of like them. We're in clusters. We're in bubbles.
In bubbles.
Okay? So we stay in our own little clusters. That way, if we have to do tracking, what do they call it? Trace tracking or something?
Track and trace.
Yeah. Whoever, like, let's say one of my students came down with COVID. We would all be quarantined for 14 days. We'd probably have to have a test. Probably a good idea. And anyone who had to do with the kids is also quarantined.
Wow. So like their whole families, maybe any friends.
Yeah. So you're talking about these poor families that are working, that all of a sudden their kid has to stay home for 14 days. You're talking about now more teachers need to serve these kids online. So it's just a mess. But you got to do what you got to do. We got to keep everyone safe.
And how do you manage to keep them in bubbles? Like, I can't imagine, like, you have your class, and then there's another class, and I'm sure they have friends in the other class. They're like, I want to talk to Jimmy, and then they...
And we eat lunch in our rooms. We don't eat lunch in the cafeteria. We eat lunch in our rooms. There's no outside recess together with others. You go on your own. You can't get on the playground because that's a big COVID petri dish.
Yeah.
And it's but we manage. We just have to manage.
Wow,
And
that
they
is
don't,
so
art and music comes to the class. So there's no transferring of students.
Incredible.
that is so remarkable. Wow.
Well, we got some more shout outs. Jason McCoe's tuned in. What's up, cuz? He says,
Hello.
hi, Mrs. McGuirt. And Stephanie says, you deserve another apple. So let's get the apple going. Bing, 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 bing. There you go. More apples. Amen HB, preach it. I'll keep preaching. Stay tuned for the second hour where we're gonna deep dive into educational theory and whatnot. But more importantly, we're gonna have fun. So where are we at?
That's
We're
right.
talking about mitigating COVID spreading in the schools. What other thoughts do you have? I mean, you guys, you must have interminable amounts of meetings about. Do you have any insights on what we're going to be like the next 6 months? As far like Joe and I are just civilians, we're just happy rappers. But you know, you work for essentially you work for the government. What are their projections on how long this is going to last?
It's gonna last a long time. I'm fearful. Thank God. I thought it was gonna be worse than it is. I thought we'd have a lot more cases, that it would spread like crazy, but apparently what we're doing is working. I've gotten 2 calls from my daughter's middle school that there's been 2 cases, you know, but she wasn't affected. She wasn't in that bubble, that cluster that had to be quarantined. I had to be quarantined and all I had was a stomach flu. I went home sick and I had to go get that COVID test before I came back to work. So I think we're really doing a good job at, you know, keeping everyone safe. And the bottom line is we have to have empathy for our parents too. They are really struggling with this, especially those who work. I mean, this is very, very difficult.
I want to go a little off on a tangent. I mean, you know, as a teacher and having worked with these bubbles and whatnot, you know, just going outside the realm of education, do you think opening back up is wise or no? I mean,
No.
we have
Not at all.
so what about, you know, kids are
I
young,
think-
they're supposedly not in a high risk group. What about people, what about the teachers, you know?
That was one of the main concerns we had here in Florida was, you know, a lot of people, I'm one of them, I'm not a young spring chicken anymore, you know? And if they're saying that young people are super spreaders and they don't get the symptoms, so you don't know. I mean, it was a huge fear. It still is a huge fear. But I mean, what can we do? We got to live. I mean, I think if people just take the precautions and do what the CDC is saying, I think we'll get through it. I'm praying, but I have to tell you, I was really scared.
We actually did a show about pandemics and epidemics, and there's one thing that's been common throughout all of them, and it's been wash your hands, social distance, and be socially responsible. And you know, people who argue against that, I mean, if you look at Europe, you know, where and Panama, which is opposite ends of the spectrum as far as social responsibility, Europe is back on lockdown. Panama has just opened their quarantines, and people are acting as if nothing is happening. And you know, I don't want to be a fearmonger, but looking at the trends, I think we're going to follow the same thing's going to happen to us here in Panama.
I agree. I agree. And you know, this hit home close to us and our family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we have to be socially responsible. We have to wear those masks. I don't care if you don't want to wear your mask, then stay home.
Wear the damn mask.
You know,
Yeah.
then stay home.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where I think you kind of see. I mean, I think when it all started, going back to what HP said about Europe, you could see how it was tearing Europe apart. And then you were like, it's going to get over here to this area at some point. And now you see that once again, it's tearing Europe apart. But then we're opening everything 100%. And then from the 12th of October, we're going to have no more. Because right now we have a quarantine. So we have a curfew, which is going to stop coming into effect after the 12th of October. Sundays today, we're all supposed to stay home. That's not going to be the case after the 12th of October. And I think more and more you're seeing people thinking like, oh, life is going back to normal. This is great. But
And people are gonna start, you know, relaxing on what they're doing because they're feeling comfortable and safe again, and that's when it's gonna hit you.
Yeah.
All right. Just to interrupt a little bit, we have 5 minutes left on Instagram. but we're going to keep streaming on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, on Periscope. Instagram has a limit of 1 hour. So I want to move us back towards education. And in the last 5 minutes, our last question is, do you have any ideas on how to make the education system better?
Ha! Do I ever?
5 minutes, go.
In 5 minutes. And go.
Oh boy. Okay. First off, get these assholes who have never taught a day in their lives out. Get them out and get some school teachers in who know what they're talking about. I'm talking about politics here, in case you didn't know. And nobody talks to the teacher. They're just doing things on their own. So that's first off. Second off is what I touched on before. Let us do our job. We went to college for this. We've been teaching for years. We know how to teach reading, okay? They're making all of us teachers go back and get a reading endorsement that costs money, costs time. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, why did we even go to college? Seriously.
So you have to pay for those additional classes?
We don't have to pay, but I'm not taking the classes because it's way too much work, way too much time. I don't have the time. I have a family. I have plus my job. So I just decided to take the test, which they waived, thank God. But you still have to pay to get it on your certificate for it to count.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, next point. Go. Lightning round.
Next point. Give us more planning time. We can't just make this happen. We need time to plan and get all this stuff together for your children. It takes more than just 30 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon. Take out the meetings, okay? Take them out. We need time to focus on our lesson planning and grading papers. Also, teachers are human beings. You know, we're just like you. We like to have fun. We like to spend time with our families. Just a little empathy maybe from some of you. I have wonderful parents, so I can't complain, but I think that's pretty much it. Am I forgetting anything, Steph, if you're on?
They're like, preach it. Stephanie says preach it. Vicky says preach it. We've got 4 more minutes on Instagram. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on?
It is the best job ever. I like ask Steph. I sit and complain. We complain to each other endlessly about, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? God, so fed up. But yet we still go every day and we love those kids. And it is one of the best jobs if you're not in it for the money, for sure. Just building, even building relationships with your other teachers. And, it's the best job in the whole entire world. I'm so thankful.
It's a fulfilling job. So just
very much so.
I understand.
Especially when you see that spark, that little spark that they get, for sure.
So, okay, we've got 3 minutes left. We're likely to get cut off, but we'll keep pushing on the other channels. Why don't you share with us some of your funniest stories about being a teacher, if they're appropriate?
Well, I already told you about the white girl or white lady. I was teaching in at USF, it's a school near the University of South Florida. And this one little girl, she would just come in and she would not call me Miss Tui, no way. And she's just, hey, white lady, hey, white lady, can you help me with this white lady? That's all she would call me, was white lady. Oh, that's such a kick out of that. Such a kick out of that. Another funny story. Oh my gosh. Okay, hopefully I don't go to jail for this. Teachers are human. Once when I was teaching my trainable kids, I accidentally left one of my students on the potty.
I know this story.
I'm walking out to the buses and I'm doing my count. And I'm like, oh shit. Boy, you've never seen a teacher run so fast. There she was, sitting on the potty. Cute as could be.
Did they notice you'd forgotten them, or were they just like, hey?
Oh no,
Ms.
they were
McGuirt?
like just sitting there, like.
I'm doing what I'm told.
I'm sitting on the potty.
Aurora de Hanon, Aurora Crow tuned in. Hola, Lola, how are you doing? All right, let's end it. Okay, everyone, that's it for Instagram. Remember, we're going to stay live on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. And we call that the after party. That's where we refill our drinks and we have fun. We move away from the format. Next week, we're thinking about having Silent Hunter PTY. Mike Bolton, who swims with great white sharks. He's shown an interest in being on the show, and we're going to try and arrange that. So make sure you tune in next week. Thank you, Mrs. McGuirt. Okay, we cut off. All right, we're ended on Instagram. Now we're ready for the after party on Facebook and YouTube. So tell us a few more of your funniest stories.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they're so funny. I have a trillion of them. I remember it was during awards where we give certificates at the end of the year. And one of my I love her to death. Boy, she had a mouth on her. I love her. I have her ornament that I hang on my Christmas tree every year. It has her picture in it. She just got up there and started waving that middle finger around. She's like posing.
She was having fun.
Oh my God. It was hilarious.
See, it's so funny because even though you find it funny, I guess you have to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
So you can't.
Yeah. For sure. And you have to be very diplomatic about how you handle it. Trust me. Another one I have, one of my students got his head stuck in the chair. You know, the little hole in the back of the chair?
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness.
His head in there. And it was stuck. Oh, my God. And you can't laugh. You have to be like, oh, my God, this is serious. But you're like dying inside.
How'd you get it out?
He got it out. He was
okay.
being dramatic. Scared the bejesus out of me, but.
I bet.
And then my favorite all-time story, please excuse my language, because you know our children do not have a filter. My children do not like a change of schedule. Everything has to be the same. That's one of the issues that children with autism have. So of course, when they go to do the testing and all that kind of stuff, the schedule changes. Well, my little friend, she's like, why are we changing the schedule? Why? This doesn't make sense. And she's having a meltdown. I said, honey, it's going to be okay. Mr. Barker, our principal, said that we have to do it this way. Well, fuck Barker, where is he? She goes up to him. She goes up to him. She's like, why are you changing the schedule? I mean, she just let him have it. I was like, oh, God. And of course, we laugh about it today, but that's, you know, they don't like their schedule changed, apparently.
Well, speaking of schedule changes, we're after hours, so I'm switching you back to Kara McGuirt and the Apple. Bye-bye, Apple.
Oh, good. Now I can have a drink. I'm a human. I can have my
I need
wine.
a refill, too.
That's right.
Joe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna refill. I'm gonna refill.
Yeah, go do it. What did Mr. Barker do when this?
Well, he's definitely trying to hold back his laughter. And I'm sitting there like, remember, we don't use that language, you know, because we teach them strategies on that being one of them, on how to hold back their anger, how to deal with their anger, frustration, and how to not use curse words.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed later on is that she'll sit there and she'll start to, you know, you can see it, and I'll give her a little cue, and you can see her. She's gonna say the curse word, and then she's like,
wow.
Schedule change is really not good for me.
No way.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Some
that
great
must be
kids.
Wow, I bet. It must be really like when you see that happen, when you see that she doesn't go off and just hold it in, you must be like, oh, it's working. I'm getting through to her.
For sure.
Wow.
For sure. Boy, she would let you have it. There was no holding back with this young lady. You did not want to piss her off.
Yeah, I bet. She seems gangster.
Yeah,
like,
she is. She was. One of my favorites, though. One of my favorites.
Hey, Joe, have you ever
goodness.
entertained the thought of being a teacher?
You know what? I was going to mention this earlier. Shout out to a teacher I had in FSU Panama, Carlos Guevara Man. He was a history teacher. He got me really interested in Panamanian history. We became really good friends after I took his course. It was a wonderful course. And he said, I can't make it to one of my first classes in one of the semesters he was teaching. He said, can you please talk to my students and let them know what the class will be about? Just, you know, do me this favor, just fill in for me and go walk over the syllabus with them and everything. So I did it, and it was I was so nervous. And you know, we're used to acting HB, but but we were talking about something serious here, and whether or not they wanted to continue in the class really had to do with how I presented the class to them. So I was scared out of my mind. I'd never felt such nerves, and I wanted to also present like I knew what I was talking about, So I was like, yeah, the history of Panama is very important. So it was nerve-wracking, man, nerve-wracking. So no, I think after that experience, I was like, yeah, I think teaching probably isn't for
me. We'll keep the teaching.
Which leads me to another funny story.
Go for it. I love these.
I'm embarrassed to say this, but God, we're human. And this one little boy, I mean, he was always playing victim. Everyone was out to get him, but he would like antagonize people and like just manipulate things so that they would get mad at him. And I was pregnant and I was very hormonal. And I said, I used his name, but I can't use his name. Young man, you are going to get your ass beat if you don't stop. And as soon as I said it, I was like, teachers do not curse in the classroom, people. This is not good. It was awful, awful. I felt absolutely horrible. I actually went and told my principal what I had done because I was like, I can't even believe that slipped out of my mouth, and ended up calling the parent and talking to the parent. And they were like, we use worse words. But I was devastated. I was like crying.
I imagine.
I felt so horrible.
I think in this day and age, that could be a career ender, right? If you have the wrong parents and the wrong principal.
Sure, I got something put in my file for it. Absolutely.
So how often does that happen often to teachers? Because I imagine that level of frustration.
Never. That's never happened to me in all my years. That was the only one time that it actually slipped out.
That's why you're the teacher and I'm not. I don't have the patience. You got all the patience, and I got all the I don't know what acting skills. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, you got the acting skills. You got the smarts. You got the smarts.
Right here.
Don't let it.
Sometimes I think you can use. Sometimes I was thinking like, man, you could potentially use your acting skills to be a teacher, but it's just two totally different presentation formats, I guess. I don't know. It's because you could say HB he acted as a teacher while teaching, and he was like, I'm gonna adapt this character who's a teacher. But then if a kid really upsets you, then what's that character gonna do, man? I don't know.
I would have the laser.
I guess it depends. Is it a drama or a comedy?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll do the crazy eyes like. But
it happens to the best of us, and I've made plenty of mistakes in my teaching career for sure. That being one of the biggies.
Wow. I had a question. Like, I remember when I was in school growing up as a kid, every time I saw the principal of the school I went to, for me, that person was like the president. They were like so important. Like, oh my God, that's the principal. And whenever the principal showed up, it was crazy. But what's the relationship like between teachers and principals? At least in your case, because principals are human beings too.
I think it depends actually on maybe how you were raised, because I was always taught to respect authority. So even now, if I see the principal, I kind of get a little nervous. I'm like, oh, that's my principal. That's my assistant principal. Even when they walk in the room to see what's going on, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. Oh my God, I get flustered, But honestly, I feel like I have a great principal and a great assistant principal that I could go in and talk to them about anything. And I think it depends on the person. I mean, you definitely have some administrators out there who are not very nice. So, and you have teachers out there who are not very nice. So I think it depends. But as for me, I get a little flustered. I'm not going to lie.
Wow. No, I remember I got my principal when I was in elementary school. He signed my yearbook. And for me, it was like, I don't know, Michael Jordan signed my yearbook. I was like, oh, yeah.
I don't think it's like that anymore, unfortunately.
Aww.
I think there's a lack of respect these days for just plain authority. Your parents, the police, your principal. It just seems like there's just no respect for authority anymore. And it's as you can tell, it's hitting our country very hard.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. I've always thought about, do you remember that movie was it Lawrence Fishburne? No, it wasn't. Morgan Freeman. Was it Lean on Me, Mr. Clark, where he was a principal in an inner city school?
Let me send that to our research department.
What's happening?
Morgan Freeman
What happened?
School.
What happened?
What? Do we have a hiccup? Uh-oh.
I think
No, we're
something
back.
happened. We're back.
Yeah, I've had some brownouts here, so indubitably we're gonna have some internet problems. Let
I
me
think we're okay now.
Yeah, we're good.
continue. You were saying about a movie with Morgan Freeman?
I think it was. Yeah, it's a film. It's called Lean on Me. It was a film in 1989. Morgan Freeman was this tough, hard-nosed principal in an inner city school, and he was really like super badass. And he was like in the worst school ever. And I was like, man, principals are crazy, but everybody loved him. And I remember my own experiences with principals. Like, that's the principal. So I always thought, I didn't know that now. Principals weren't superstars like they used to be.
I think it's how you're raised and how you see people.
Yeah.
I think my principal's a superstar. I will say that. But I guess it just depends on the person for sure. But I need to see that movie because it sounds really good.
You should. It's epic. Lean on Me, Morgan Freeman.
Yes.
We need to
Lean
see that
on
movie.
Me, 1989.
You know what?
Very good.
1989.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Kids need that authority. They need somebody to
Structure,
have.
right?
Actually, I think the whole world really needs it right now. These are the laws. These are the laws of the school. You're going to follow them. And if not, you're going to, but we're not allowed to do that anymore. So probably overstepping my mouthy bounds.
Well, I probably have some hot takes about the subject too. I don't want to go into hot takes yet. But anyway, I had a very positive experience once. I was doing charity work for the Helen Keller School, and they wanted to have the parents in and have a class for the parents on what it's like to be blind and how to learn as a blind child. And I was like, yeah, I got the Elks Club to fund it. We bought all the snacks. We got the Ministry of Education to support it. And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen is we put the tables in a U, and we asked certain star pupils to participate. And then the director showed them, like, I want you to know how your child interacts with the world. And he gave them a pencil. And what is this? Oh, that's a pencil. And then he gave them something that they would interact with as a blind student, and they knew what it was. And then he gave them something that they wouldn't normally interact with. And he's like, what is this thing? And they would, and he faced the parents. He's like, look at how they're interacting with their sense of touch. And then they started tapping on it. He's like, look at they're trying to figure out what the substances are that it's made of. And so they started tapping on one side and the other, and the student said, I don't know what this is, but I imagine it's something you would look through. It was a set of binoculars. So it's something that they would never have interacted with. And I mean, the faces on the parents was just like, whoa.
Wow, yeah.
And then we put a Braille machine in front of all the parents and showed them how to use the Braille machine. And a lot of the parents were like, I don't know what these little dots mean. And so we did like a intro class, and that was probably one of the most heart-melting things that I've ever participated in. And the parents were just overjoyed with their thanks, and definitely a connection there. So
That's amazing. I love that story. You told that to me, and I think that's amazing that they got to experience that. Because how do you know if you've never experienced something like that? You just don't.
Right. I mean, and the parents said the same thing. Like, well, thank you so much. There's no way that I can help him with his Braille homework because I can't read Braille, and so that was, well, that's probably one of the highlights of my life was that specific class. But it does nothing but reinforce my respect for teachers and how important it is to have that empathy, to have that ability to reach people who other people deem unreachable, to have that patience and that drive. To me, teachers are, they should be esteemed like priests are, like presidents and policemen. You have your teachers.
I don't
and
know.
respect. Yeah.
People don't think that way about our president, our police, or anyone else. How about our principals? There
Our
you go.
principals and our
Principals, that's
teachers
right.
should be very highly esteemed.
Yes.
That's right. 100%, man. Hey, I think if as a child, if you get a teacher that's really not committed to what they're doing, it can seriously set you on a different path. to the one that you could
Absolutely.
potentially be in if you have a teacher that does care about what they're doing, you know?
I mean, think about it. Think back to your teachers. I mean, I can name all of my teachers until I get to middle school because, then it
Oh, we
was
had
like 7 different
wonderful
classrooms.
teachers.
But I can still remember some of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, true
I
that.
saw
And I still remember my favorite teachers.
I saw Mrs. Fanning at the reunion, and I talked to her for about 3 hours. She was my third grade teacher. I'll never forget her. She was so kind, and just made an environment that I felt accepted. I remember her to this day, and I had such a wonderful time catching up with her. And she's like, "No, you're having fun. Go." I was like, "I'd rather be here. Tell you the truth."
You just don't realize, even as an adult, the things that, might spark a kid. Or like, I remember like Miss Deslandis used to make us play chess every day for lunch. And I love chess. And then I saw her the other day and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, Miss Deslandis. And I revered her. I thought she was amazing,
Absolutely.
So you just don't know what you do, even as an adult, around other children or teachers around other children, what's going to spark someone, or really what's going to, be a downfall for them. I mean, I can remember negative things that happened, in school where I was embarrassed, because I didn't know my multiplication facts, things like that you don't think about, that you could potentially be harming a child by just doing something you didn't even think of.
Yeah, I did have that type of experience with a math teacher in junior high, and then because of the pressures of trying to get into a better school, I decided to take AP Calculus at the same time I was taking another math class. So I was taking 2 math classes as a senior, and fortunately the year before I had Mr. Joe Brown, excellent teacher. He explained things the way that I could understand them, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have taken that burden of taking 2 classes. And I was fortunate again to get an excellent teacher who was the wife of one of my favorite teachers, Jack Peterson's wife, that I went to the Galapagos with. His wife was my teacher. Mrs. Peterson taught. She was just wonderful, and you can't erase those types of memories of wonderful teachers.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember in middle school I was in this like art school for middle school, and we had photography, right? And my photography teacher, his name was Mr. Farnsworth. And this guy, he used to be a professional photographer, and then he was like, I'm going to give it up to become a teacher. So he would just kind of teach kids how to be proper photographers. And this was back in the day before digital, right? Where you still had the film and you had to load it into the camera. And we had the dark room where we'd go in and do all the stuff. And I just remember all of us that were in that class, we had to like make an effort to get into the class. But still, there were people in there that were just, like not having it. And I remember just his patience with everyone and just being able to get through to everyone and how to get them to understand their different styles of photography and how to properly aim the camera and take the picture and what they were trying. It's incredible. And I will remember him to this, like Mr. Farnsworth. I will never, ever forget him. That guy was like so patient. And he was kind of like hippie-ish. So he was sort of groovy. But I mean, come on.
Very cool.
Like, I was crazy.
I love that story. I love that.
He was really cool. And I think it's one of those things where you kind of just think, kids are very impressionable, right? And even when you think they're not listening to you, there's something that they're getting out of what you're saying.
Exactly. And honestly, it is like acting. I mean, you have to put on your acting face all day long. There's no doubt about that. And that's a lot of work for you actors, I know.
Yeah. Well, we're lucky. We do it for fun. You have to do it every day for how many hours a day is a normal class?
You must be exhausted when you're done.
No. Yeah, it's about 7 hours, 6 hours, I think it is.
Yeah, imagine 6 hours of being
it
on.
It seems longer.
You're on, where there's no relaxation. You're just on.
Yeah.
I think.
And then you get 20 minutes for lunch.
What's up with that?
Well, you technically get 30, but by the time you drop your kids off, we're eating in the classroom now, and warm up your food and go to the bathroom, basically you only have about 15, 20 minutes to down your lunch.
Well, that
Oh,
brings up
man.
another question. How do you deal with bathroom breaks?
Yeah, seriously.
You have to hold it?
Everyone has UTIs. Ask any teacher. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm very fortunate because I have IAs in my room, but
What's an
regular
IA?
teachers do not.
Yeah,
An
what's an IA?
instructional assistant.
Instructional assistant.
Instructional assistant. Now, most regular teachers do not have that. So, yeah, they got to hold it. And if they got to go bad, they're probably calling the front office to have someone step in or getting a team member to, watch their class for a minute.
Interesting.
Wow. And that must be even more difficult now, especially if you're trying to maintain a bubble without having new people kind of come in and disrupt.
Exactly. For sure. It makes it very
Wow.
difficult. There's no gang bathrooms. Everyone has each bubble has their specific place where they go.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
out of the normal 7-hour student day, how much of that do you think is taken up by these new pandemic routines that are being put in place? I mean, is this no?
Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
mean, is it taking away from the teaching time? I think one of your biggest complaints before was, "Give me time to teach."
No, it has not. I think actually, because they're in the classroom eating lunch and they're eating breakfast in the classroom, I use breakfast time to pull my kids and work with them, quite honestly. So I feel like we have more time. My gripe is they try to micromanage us what we have to teach. They keep sending us to all these trainings that cost millions and millions of dollars, and then they switch it up after they've spent millions and millions of dollars. Instead of giving their teachers and instructional assistants and bus drivers a raise, they spend it on this curriculum that is worthless. So we go through all these trainings, we waste time learning the new whatever. Steph, I know you remember LFS. Ugh. And then they switch it.
Yeah.
So all of that was pointless. Time wasted, money wasted. Let us do what we know how to do.
Let us teach. Yeah. Interesting. Are there any other minutia, like little things that you go through through the day that you think would be enlightening to a parent?
I think that most of my parents are pretty empathetic and understand because they really have trouble at home with their children with autism. I mean, this is very difficult for these parents. And a lot of times people say, "Oh, you're just babysitting or whatever." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm teaching. I'm teaching." "Oh, all they do in your class is play." No, they don't. We're teaching. And I think the parents really understand because they go through it at home. So they can't imagine having a class of 10 with, this kind of disability. So I really do think that they're grateful. Now, when I was in the regular ed environment, the empathy was not so much there at all. I mean, they always had something to say negative, not all of them, but about my teaching. I wasn't doing it well. And why are they failing? Well, there's only so much I can do. Why don't you help at home too?
Right.
So I think the regular ed teachers really have it hard. Really do.
I've got a question for you. What's your opinion on homeschooling?
If it's for you, go for it. You would never catch me homeschooling. There's something to be said. All of us parents go through it. Our kids are different around us than they are at school or with other people. They just behave. But with you, they're like, this is my mom, whatever.
Yeah.
So homeschooling, good luck with that.
As far
Not for me.
you, because there's a lack of decorum by your kids, you might have a parent might have a more difficult time actually teaching.
I would say so.
Well,
I would
do you
say
think
so.
that it's a viable alternative? Is it
Sure. They have to pass state mandates, and those kids have to take the test just like everybody else does. Regular, kids that go to actual school. And if the kids aren't, if they're not turning in their, paperworks and their tests, then they could get in trouble. But then again, with all this pandemic stuff, my kids were doing great because the parents were helping them. So
But so you if the parent can weather it, then it is a viable alternative. Is it as effective?
and
Or-
if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, because there are a lot of parents out there who are wonderful at it, and they do, they follow the guidelines and they're actually teaching. Now there are some, just like with everything, that aren't doing the right thing. So it's just, what can you do?
So for the parents who have decided to go the homeschooling route, do you have any tips for them?
God bless you is all I have to say, because I surely could not do it in a million years. Not for me. God bless you. I have no tips because I would be terrible at homeschooling.
That's kind of enlightening to hear from a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously. But Kara, on that then, how did you manage when everything went off, when COVID kicked off, and then all of a sudden schools were closed and you found yourself at home teaching your students, but then also trying to make sure that your kids were doing their work. How did you manage that?
I didn't. I was terrible. Honestly, I was a terrible. Sometimes they say teachers make the worst parents because by the time they get home, they're just like done. And honestly, I struggled. I could not keep up. I could not keep up with their assignments. And then I was a mess. I'm not going to lie. I was a terrible, terrible stay-at-home mom.
As your brother and as their uncle, I think you're exaggerating, but that's all I got to say about that.
Tooey. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It was.
Because I guess you were always sitting in front of a screen at some point throughout the day, and then you're teaching your school kids, but then your kids are sitting next to you and they're trying to focus.
Oh no, that's not what happened.
They're running around like
that's
animals.
That's where the slacker in me came about. Okay. So my kids needed extra help because they're autistic, not my kids, my students. They're autistic. So I'm on a Zoom call with them, presenting the lesson to them and walking them through it and doing the assignments with them all day long. It's not like they could just get, like regular ed students would get on and just click, and then you would have a conference with them if you needed to. So by the time my kids were not doing schoolwork during the day, it wasn't until after I was done that I sat down with them to do their schoolwork.
So you're pulling double, triple duty.
Yeah, because they were taking evening classes or after.
That's exactly what they were doing, evening classes. And I was pretty much done by then. I'm like, just turn in something. I don't care what it is. Yes, I did that. Yes, I did. But I'm a teacher.
You're a human being.
I was like, okay, I know this is live, but I'm going to be honest. Those reading logs. I'm like, just go get a book that you read before and fill it in.
On that note, we have a shout out from Matt Grimison. Great to see and hear you guys. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Matt.
That's probably what I would do. I was like, you've got books, go find a book.
Yeah, have something you've read. Come on, man.
And fill it in.
No, you can't use a comic book. Well, comic books are pretty good. I read a lot of comic books growing up, and I found them equally entertaining and enlightening. They used words that weren't usually used in the common vernacular.
Hey, when I got to the States, I was in second grade, and one of the things that helped me to learn English super quick, comic books. And there were so many words in there that I had never heard before, and I was like, whoa. So of course I had to look them up to find out what they meant. And I think, it totally helped me to master the English language, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think.
And you know what's funny? Just on that, I guess because I got such a love for comic books because of that. So I always wanted to read comic books. And I remember my librarian in elementary school, Mrs. Martinez. I will never ever forget this woman. I would always go to the library and I would ask her for comic books or something comic book related. So I'd be like, do you have anything with Spider-Man in it? And she'd be like, I don't have something with Spider-Man in it, but how about this book about spiders? And I'd be like, oh, I can read that.
Nice job, Mrs. Martinez.
Gently usher me towards something else.
You were ushered.
So she had me reading all these books about all these ridiculous, not ridiculous, but these amazing things that I would have never read if she hadn't been like, okay, don't worry. And she just ushered me towards these
Spiders?
this literature.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I
Don't
got you.
worry. They have something nowadays called graphic novels.
Yeah.
So we are good to go
Yeah.
there.
It's a shame I'm not in school now.
I need a refill. I'll be right back.
Go for it.
Yes.
Carry on.
So Joe,
Miss Martinez.
we're talking about comic books. What other genres of books and whatnot are you? Have you done in your current position at work? Do you have to take any continuing education or anything?
I do actually, but I'm trying to focus now on leadership and improving my leadership skills. So I've been trying to focus on just taking kind of courses on leadership, and because I managed to be able to take a comms course when I first started, so that helped. That was a week-long course, and then I took another course on responding to crisis, and I really love crisis management and all that type of stuff. So yeah, every now and then I get to take courses.
Do you?
For now, I'm trying to focus on.
How do you feel about? Are those online? How are you adjusting that? It looks like we have a little internet delay here. Well, I just want to let you guys know, if you guys are still tuned in, we have a little delay in our internet. If you can still hear me, I was looking at other resources for learning. khanacademy.org.
People in
you're back.
crisis times.
Here, I lost you for you said I asked you about how you ingested it, if it was online or in person.
Yeah, no, so the course I took on communications, that was in person, thankfully, and that was a pretty intense course, a week-long course where basically it was just learning to communicate better with people in crisis scenarios, in everyday scenarios, in those types of things. I also took a crisis course, which was again in person. They threw us out into the middle of nowhere and tried to put us in about as stressful a situation as they could put us and give us an objective to fulfill. But now everything's online. So I realized that it's very important to be able to manage your own resilience and the resilience of your team. So I've been trying to focus a lot on improving my capacity to manage teams during stressful times and sort of building their resilience. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Team building and communication.
Who knows what that's going to get that be online.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's key. I think everyone has their own management style, right? Everyone thinks they know what's best to manage people. I don't agree a lot with the way teams are managed in Latin America, where it's just kind of like, I'm the boss and you do what I tell you because I'm the boss. Exactly. Just particularly in the sense of well-being and respecting people for the fact that they're humans who deserve respect. I'm trying to focus on that type of an angle and how to manage people from different sort of
right, to be more empathic or empathetic to their needs. That reminds me of there's two studies by Google, that they keep, not only do they keep all your information, they keep all their own information. Project Oxygen and Project Aristotle, something like that. Anyway, they were trying to figure out who the best leaders were with all their human resources records, right? And they figured it would be someone who focused on STEM, science, technology. But they found that the project, because Google has all these different tangents that they're developing new technologies and whatnot. They found out that the people who it wasn't the A teams that had the brightest students and the top recruitments from the best colleges. It was the B teams that were led by people who excelled in the arts and humanities. So the ability to be a leader, if you want, they found through Google studies that to be an effective leader, you have to be empathic. You have to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. You have to be able to create an environment where people are comfortable and there's no bullying. You have to, so the way that they tie that back into the humanities and to the arts, that's what we do as actors, right? Essentially the cure for everything is acting. That's all I was getting at.
I think so. Pretend to be someone else and you'll get it sorted.
Oh, well, Kara's back. That deserves an apple.
Fake it till you make it.
There's your apple.
That's right. Pretty much.
Thank you.
So we were just talking about further education.
Speaking of
Go
apples.
ahead, Joe.
No, speaking of apples, I posted a delicious apple whiskey cocktail on the Rapscallion stories earlier today that
Tell us
people can
about it,
make at
Joe.
home. I made it. I made it last week.
Delish
It is top notch, super delicious. Some Scotch whiskey, some apple juice, some sparkling water, some ice.
tops.
Fabulous.
That was amazing.
Yes, it is
Bring
very,
that
very
to your
Yeah.
teacher.
Hey, you know what? I think if I ever have kids, I think I know now. I'll just prepare some drinks at home, some special cocktails, and be like, take this to your
Yeah.
teacher.
I did for my kids' teachers. I made like this huge goodie bag, like whatever it was, their birthday or teacher appreciation week, and I would fill it with like calming scents, some smut magazines, and definitely little tiny bottles of champagne and wine.
Oh,
I
that's
said, you're gonna
amazing.
need this, and like some Tylenol.
Wow. Well, actually, on that, Kara, how does it feel for you as a teacher when you receive gifts from students? Is that is that is that
One of
something
the
that teachers like?
Of course, we all love it, but honestly, the best gifts that I've ever gotten is something made from the student. Like, my one student gave me an ornament thing that's all she had. That's all her parents had to give it. There was no picture in it or anything. It was just like this little tiny used ornament. And I sat there with her during lunch one day. We printed out, I took a picture of her, I printed it out, and I put it inside the ornament. Oh,
Oh,
she was so happy. I said, this is one of my best gifts. And every year I hang it on the tree every year.
Beautiful.
that's very sweet. Yeah,
I
that is
even
very.
take pictures of it. I said, look, I hung it up again this year.
Oh, that is very cool. So do you still keep in touch with students that you've had in the past?
Absolutely. Well, now
Yeah.
with the class dojo, you can keep your past students. And so like I have my classroom, we just switched to class dojo. People have been using it for years now, but now our school, that's what we use as a, communication. And all my parents from last year, I still have, they can contact me anytime they need to, because they were really worried because these are the kids that I had had for 3 years and they were going to a different teacher. So anytime they have questions or anything, they can just reach me through Class Dojo.
Wow. And Class Dojo is a teaching platform.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That is so cool because I can remember like the teachers I mentioned earlier, like Miss Justice. This was a teacher that really kind of helped to shape the person who I would become. And she was my teacher for fifth grade and sixth grade. And she was such a strong person, and I really admired her for that. And I just kind of, it always made me a bit sad that I was never able to keep in touch with her.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I think I would write her an email like, "Oh my God, I love you so much. You were the best."
Listen, with Facebook, I'm not on Facebook currently. I kind of taken a hiatus from Facebook. It's been about 5 years now, but I've had students reach out to me through Facebook Messenger and be like, "Do you remember me? I'm graduating from college." And those are the best when you get messages like that. Just, talking about their life and where they are now, because you
Yeah.
still remember them as your little itty bitty student. Or when they
Right.
come to the school, now they can't do that with COVID, but I had a couple students who are in high school come back to the school just to come see me. And
Wow.
yeah, that really touches the heart for sure.
That must have been a trip. Definitely. It's really cool for me to hear HB like when he speaks about catching up with teachers and stuff at reunions and everything. That must be wild. That must be so wild. Just remembering how it used to be when you were a student, and then now you guys are all adults and you can interact in a different sort of setting. That is
Well, I think
really
we drank
cool.
with some of our teachers growing up. Yeah.
I can't listen. I'm just happy I work an hour away, because I remember when I lived closer to my school and I'd go to the grocery store, I'd be looking around and I'd be like, okay, I'm buying alcohol. Make sure no students or parents are around. Okay, I'm good to go. Or going to Applebee's and with all my teacher friends after work on a Friday. And I was paranoid. I would turn my school shirt inside out, and because all the parents would go there too. And
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
oh my God, I'm having a martini. Oh my God, they're gonna see me. I was so paranoid, really, really paranoid.
Teachers are
Oh, that is
teachers are
too
people
funny.
too, man.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's really funny, HB? Remember when we've done improv and we were on and we've shared the stage with Lisa Palm, and she's had students that have gone to see her perform, and that's always really, really cool because I think it just, they go to support her and they're always like clapping and cheering and everything, and it's very nice because I guess in today's day and age, it's a lot different to how it was back in the day when teachers and students had this break, right? And it was like I'm a student, and but now it really the relationship can
Yeah,
be so
and
much
in
more,
Panama too. Panama's
you
so
Correct.
know?
tiny. Like when Xenia comes to see the plays, she's like mother hen with people from all different ages. Like. And they're all giving her hugs. Like, what's
Mm,
going on? I was like, oh, this was my student back then. And she tells me 5 minutes about this
yeah,
person's life. And I was like, well, what about this person over here? Oh, they were my student at this time. And she knows their complete timeline of their life. And that seems kind of amazing to me, too, as how a teacher can keep track of the people that come in and out of their lives.
yeah.
It's very difficult. I'll tell you that.
You must have a
Yeah, I don't
really
have
good
that
memory.
memory.
Not these days. I
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
remember. Remember, I told you the two kids that came to see me at school. I couldn't remember one of their names. I swear to save my life. So I just called them what I called them at school. They were my baby birds, and they would always call me Mama Bird.
Aw.
So I'm like, my
Well,
baby birds. Look at you. You're all grown
I think, well,
up.
that's probably more endearing than just being called your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I think for me it was really weird. So with my teacher I had in FSU, Carlos, when I stopped being his student, I would still refer to him as usted. And he was like, "You don't have to call me that. You're not my student anymore. More, you can call me tú." And I
Yeah.
was
Right.
like,
Well, I had that problem with the Shorty and
"Whoa."
Slim show. How about, Dave's there. Mr. Sykes. I mean, David, Dave.
Yeah. HB was all nervous. He was acting like he had to
Yeah.
submit
At the end
something,
of the
like turn
day,
in a
I don't.
project for
You
review.
didn't grade me for this show. There was a lot of echo in the beginning. I felt awful.
Oh my gosh. Kara, I
But
have a
see, that
question
just
for you.
goes, yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
That goes to show that you had a respect for your teachers, respect
Yeah.
for authority.
Mm-hmm. Which is very important. And
Yeah.
we should all have it.
Anyway, I didn't
What
mean to
was,
cut you off.
no, it's all good. What was HB like as a student? I think people would like to know. You
Awesome.
probably
Nerd,
knew
man.
him when he was
I
a
was
youngin.
so jealous of him. You have no idea. He didn't even have to study.
I didn't do homework. I didn't have to study. I just aced the tests.
He just he just remembered everything like this. Whereas I had to work really hard for my C's.
What?
God, I
School
was
was
so
fun.
jealous.
People
Oh,
say, "Would you go
no.
back to school?" I would do it in a second. I was good at school. I was the captain of the football team, captain of the soccer team. Principals list, everything.
Man, this sounds like a movie,
Teen
man.
Wolf.
It sounds like
Teen
a movie
Wolf.
where you're like the.
Hey, did you see that we have? Did you see our little logos? We have the little, what are they called? The plaster boards, the little graduation hats on.
Yeah.
Thanks to Karina Weber for the wonderful graphic design of everything. She's really good at it. She does all of
Yeah.
our cover art, and she does all the little clip art that we put on our screens during the show.
Hola,
Wow.
Karina, I miss you. I miss all my peeps out there. I love you
Oh.
all.
Do you have any plans to come back to Panama in the future for a visit?
God, I
After
hope
COVID,
so.
right?
Yes, I really do. I want to get my kids down there too, for sure.
Yeah. When was the last time that you all came down?
Two.
It was for
When
your
was that?
engagement, for your wedding.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
for
that's
Dad's.
right, it was for
thing.
Dad's funeral.
No,
Oh, I blocked that out
Yeah.
successfully.
sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up.
Well, we had a lot of fun. We celebrated
Yeah,
the
we
way
did.
our father would have wanted us to celebrate. We did. We took his ashes on the same day. We went from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean because we have the property on the Pacific coast. So we put his box of ashes with a rum and coke in the Pacific Ocean where he spent his adult life. And on the same day, he spent the evening in the Atlantic Ocean where he was born and raised. He was born in Colón. And then for his wake, for his funeral, we had a huge pig roast with green beer, and we made all his friends come and celebrate. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
It was fun.
Excellent. That was at that park, wasn't it? In
Civic Center.
Cardenas?
Yeah.
We weren't sure what to do, so we had a pig roast. He would have loved that.
That's what he would have loved. He would have
Yeah.
loved that. And just seeing everybody, I just enjoyed seeing everybody, all my high school peeps out there. We had so much fun. A time that's supposed to be mournful and sad. Yeah. It was not at all. It was so much fun. We're very lucky to have our family and friends down in Panama, because a lot of people don't have those relationships up here in the States.
That reminds me of, as far as parental support, my dad had retired because of the turnover of the canal, but he was very active in our scholastic career, so they needed someone to teach Star Lab. Have you ever heard of Star Lab, Joe? It's like this tent. It's like this inflatable tent that you crawl into, and it has all the stars projected on the inside of it. So they needed someone to do it. So someone thought of asking, I think it was Mrs. Lee, who was our principal in Diablo. She was a wonderful lady. I'll never forget her. And
I won't either, especially when she thought I flipped her off.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story. Sorry.
So they asked him to do it, and he picked up some books. He read up on the books and all the constellations, and then he taught everyone Star Lab. And a lot of people come up to me. He's like, "I remember your dad teaching us Star Lab," and that was just. I mentioned earlier about picking up books and learning things, and every year after that, he and I would go across the bridge to Farfan and watch the meteor showers. So that him picking that up out of being asked and learning about it and becoming an expert on it affected me to this day. Unfortunately, I've forgotten most of the constellations, but that memory of him just deciding to do Star Lab and being good at it, it's a lasting memory.
Every time we still do, well, not anymore because of the pandemic, but we had Star Lab at my school every year, and every time I see that bubble boy, I think of Dad.
Wow.
It's like this igloo tent where they put the fan on and it inflates, and then all the kids crawl through this little tunnel. It's like this big dome, and then you put a light in the middle of it, and there's a globe on it that has the holes poked out for all the stars in the sky. And you can change it depending on each hemisphere and whatnot. And you turn it on, and it shows all the constellations on the roof of this inflatable igloo tent. So that was always neat. Wow. And then, of course, when my friends were misbehaving and my dad was the teacher, I got so mad at them. I got so mad. I was embarrassed. And then afterwards, I would yell at them, and then my dad would be reprimanding them. I was like, "Why? That's my dad. You can't do that during class when my dad is teaching."
Wow, so they got it both ways.
Good for you.
Yeah, I think I got a black eye too for that.
That's amazing. Oh, that is too funny, man. But yeah, good for you, man.
Just on another tangent, I've spoken before about going to the Galapagos with another one of my favorite teachers, Jack Peterson. And to tie that into the constellations, we were in the Galapagos on a boat in the middle of the ocean with no lights on. The captain turned the lights off specifically because we were there for a certain celestial event where we could see the North Star and the Southern Cross in the same horizon, which, there's only a certain percentage of human beings on Earth that have been able to witness that. So thanks to my dad's being the Star Lab teacher and having me interested. Everyone else was like, "Oh, North Star, Southern Cross, big whoop." I was like, "Holy shit!" I knew what a special event that was. Whereas, other people were just like, "Okay, noted."
Man, that's really special, man. That is really good.
Well, we got
stuff.
10 minutes. 10 minutes
Good
left
old
on
Dad.
this, on the after party. Let's hear some more fun stories about teaching too.
Oh, let's see. Where do I go to next? I already talked about the white lady. I already talked about.
What about the?
think.
I don't want to ruin it. The one that wiped stuff on himself. Yeah, that
What?
story makes me laugh. You're trying to potty train
Wait,
him,
which
and he
one
ended
is
up
that?
giving himself a mustache.
Oh. Yeah, that was not pleasant at all. At all. He.
Take us there.
Yes, and
Take
I
us there.
should not be potty training. I would just like to add that, okay?
Seriously.
But we get 'em
Value-added
every
teaching.
year, and I gotta potty
Value-added
train 'em.
teaching.
Jesus. So, we're trying to potty train this kid, and just like HB said, he did his thing.
Yeah.
Many horror
Whoa.
stories. My favorite also is just this about 3 weeks ago. One of the kids had an accident. He didn't make it to the toilet fast enough. He had to poop really bad. And so I'm in there. I got my blue gloves on, mask on. This kid's no clothes on. There's shit everywhere, all over the goddamn bathroom, all over everything. And the principal comes in. This just so happened to be the time where he decided to visit my class. The class outside the bathroom, my class, is going absolutely crazy. And he comes in and he takes one look in the bathroom and he's on his walkie-talkie and he's like, code red, to the sports room. Code red, hurry up. Thanks, Tom.
Shouldn't it be a code brown? I'm sorry.
Code Brown.
Code
Indeed.
Brown. It really should.
So in preparation for this, and not to take us away from the fun stories, but we were talking about continuing education. I looked up ways that people can continue their studies. I know that so many colleges give their curriculums for free, like Harvard does, Massachusetts, MIT does. There's khanacademy.org, which is has a lot of funding, is trying to give the most advanced teaching techniques for free over the internet. Who else? There's several ways to get free education. Anything that you're interested.
One of the things I found, because I'm also at work, I'm the lead on learning and development for the people regionally within the organization. There's this website called FutureLearn, which offers free MOOCs, which I forget what that stands for now, but basically it's a lot of free courses that people can take on a whole variety of things from several different universities and institutions. It's really, really good.
Nice. I didn't even
I just
know
typed
that.
that one in.
Yeah, it's called FutureLearn.
Very interesting.
It's really, really good. Let me see if I can get you what the definition is of a MOOC.
A MOOC.
MOOCs. A MOOC. Massive open online courses. Of course
Nice.
it is, yeah. And they're free and it's incredible. FutureLearn is the
I'm gonna
website.
spend some time on this tomorrow, not tonight, but tomorrow. And then we live in the age of the internet.
Yeah.
Kara, how do you think that you started teaching right at the beginning of the internet? How has internet changed how students ingest information and how they can get information?
I think, I used to be one of those people, because I'm old now, oh, don't take your iPad to the restaurant. Don't take your phone. Limit the time. I'm telling you, though, my kids have learned so much. Probably some things they should not be learning, but their vocabulary at a young age increased immensely just by watching.
Come say hi.
Carol. That's my
Come here,
That's
Carolyn.
my eldest.
You want to come say hello? Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
They blur the background, I guess.
You have to get closer
Anyway,
so you're not blurry.
Their vocabulary had increased so much just by watching things. Like I remember Addison being in the pool and using the word oh my God, I'm going to die of hypothermia in this pool. And she was like 4 or something like that.
Wow.
Where'd you learn that? I didn't teach you that. I mean, but there's pros and
Sure.
cons with that, I think. I think,
I think we
You
tend to
know,
focus too much on the cons, and the pros get overshadowed.
Yeah.
but it's definitely a neat way also to get kids engaged. You know, they love their electronics, and there's plenty of educational games out there.
Mm.
You know, unfortunately, my daughter is struggling right now in kindergarten. I know that's hard to believe, but you know, with COVID, she didn't get to finish her VPK. And honestly, I didn't work with her as much as I should have. So we're utilizing, you know, all these different programs online to try to get her caught up, you know, with the other things. The other things are important too. Being read to is very important. You know, even just spending time doing fun game, like in the pool. Throw those alphabet letters in there and have them go swim for them, you know, so it doesn't feel like
I
learning.
remember when we were young, we
Yeah.
played a lot of board games. Is that still part of the curriculum? Like playing chess and stuff?
No,
And what about like band and
No.
gym class?
there's no fun in school
Is
anymore.
there still band class?
There's no fun in school anymore. I think the middle schoolers have band. We have music in elementary, and we still do like team building in elementary school, you know, like with PE and stuff. But we do have educational games that we use that the kids absolutely love. But even just playing a game, you know, turn taking and waiting your turn. I mean, those are all very valuable things that you need to
Yeah.
learn as, you know, a young person.
Sure.
I do it. And then reading
Very
books, they say that's
Very important.
being
Number
able to
one.
read, and especially reading during the summer when you're not in school, it tends to separate good
Absolutely.
students from students that don't perform as well. So we've got 4 minutes left. Another lightning round 2.
All right.
Tell the listeners, whoever's left, I think there's 3 or 4 of us, but tell them how can they make the best use of education now, and how they can make their children better students.
Well, definitely the open communication with the teachers is number one. They're going to let you know what your student needs to work on. And don't be afraid. I think people think, those of us who have, you know, a respect for authority, I think they might be a little intimidated and afraid by their teachers, but you don't have to be. We're humans. We want to listen to you as much as, you know, you want to listen to us, and have that open communication. That, I think that's the most important. And, you know, whatever your teacher says that you have to work on, that's what you should be working on at school. And also, as a parent and a teacher, I know sometimes when I am talking to other teachers about their students or about their kids, it's very intimidating because, you know, they know the
Well, I think
facts
it's
of
they
teaching.
maybe they feel
And
like they're
here
not
I'm
doing the right
telling them
thing. They're
that-
afraid that they're doing something wrong, and so that might lead to their timidity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just have open communication. I know with my daughter's teacher, she's struggling right now in kindergarten. You know, I was like, thank you so much. I'm going to work with her at home. You know, you just have to have a respect. That's all. And an open line of communication
Beautiful.
for sure.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Number one teacher, a Rapscallions favorite, Miss McGuirt. Thank you so much for being on the show. I love you too as a brother and also as a Rapscallion. This is has been one of my favorite shows. We had a lot of good stuff in there. Joe, give us your wrap up, please. Inspirational moment if you can.
Inspirational moment. I think the only thing I can say now is people, you know, we still need to look out for each other. We still need to take care of each other. We're still not out of this. And this is going to take a community effort. You know, we're all in this together. There can be no individualism. This is a team sport. And the only way we're going to get better and move forward is by working
You're
together.
here.
Here, here.
Well, stay
Love
stay
it.
tuned. Don't hang up yet, Kara. I'm going to wrap up the show next week.
Okay.
We've been talking to Silent Hunter Pty, and he swims with great white sharks. And his
Crazy.
videos are amazing. We're going to try and have him on this coming Sunday, if not the Sunday afterwards. So make sure you tune in and send in your questions. If you have any questions for Miss McGuirt, send her an apple and your questions. We'll make sure they get to her. And thank you again, Kara, for being part of our show. Thank you, Joe. Goodbye, everybody. We're tuning out.
Thank you for having
Love you
me. I love
too.
you guys.